Hi. So now let us see the first definition, that is entity. Okay. So what is meaning of entity actually? So you can see here, first of all, an entity is an object or component of a data. Okay. So don't confuse about this name. So entity we can say simply as a table, as a layman discussion. So table is what actually set of records. So we are going to have set of records, right? So what does it mean? For example, if I take EMP table, so we are going to have a EMP number, E name, for example, salary we have. So let us take simple words. So EMP number one, ABC is the E name and salary is 500, for example. And two, XYZ and salary is 600. So you can see this is one table, right? So this is one entity you can say. And sometimes this column you can say as a entity. Sometimes this record as a entity. So that is actually, so most of the places you can say table as an entity, but depends on the situation, its meaning will change it. But we will understand automatically actually. So this is one instance you can say. This record is actually one instance in the entity. When you say this EMP calling as an entity. Okay, so that is why don't bother about the definition. So it is just a object or component of a data. Yes, this overall you can call as a data, or this single row calling as a data, or this single column calling as a data. That is what actually. That is why anything is going to become an entity basing on the situation. But most of the times we can say one table, that means this whole complete set of records together with column names, we are calling as a entity actually. In the most of the places we will use actually. Okay. So how you can represent a one entity is with a rectangle actually. So for example, if you see student is one entity, so in the student, we may have the attributes like student number, student name, student grade, address, phone number. Also, all these things are going to become entity actually. So if you take another entity, college, so college ID, college name, address, and what are all branches it is providing. So that is going to become another entity. So this is what actually simply a entity. Okay. Now from this, as we've seen already, we have another definition, that is weak entity. So as we've seen already different keys in the previous lectures, so that is a primary key, candidate key. So when an entity is going to become a weak entity. So for example, student, if you take, in this, we have a student number. So, or you can say roll number, that is simply in simple words. So roll number is actually what actually every student you can identify uniquely. So that means it have a key actually, that is what a primary key. So which table have a key that is going to become strong entity. Okay, strong entity meaning is what? An entity with primary key. So out of all the columns, what are all columns we have? One of the column or combination of the columns, we are able to identify primary key actually. So such an entity we are calling as a strong entity, fine. Now when it become weak entity, so you can see now an entity that cannot be uniquely identified by its own attributes is the weak entity. So that means there is no primary key. We are unable to identify any attribute or a combination of attributes together with as a primary key actually. So such a entities we are calling as a weak entities. So that we are going to represent. So it relies on the relationship with other entities actually. So to identify the records uniquely, it depends on the other entities. That part we will get the clarity in the discussion. So that we are going to represent with a double rectangle. So that is what, for example, if you take bank account, so for example, in a organization, for every employee, bank account we have to take. So one employee may give one bank account, so XYZ bank account. and another employee may give another bank account. So like, for example, one employee given ICICI. Okay. So another employee given HDFC Bank's account. Another employee given so SBI bank account. So like this, if you see, they given 1, 2, 3. For example, in the HDFC also you may have 1, 2, 3. Is it or not? So in SBI, for example, 5, 6, 7. So you can see we are unable to identify each bank account uniquely. So that is why simply just taking the bank account, you cannot identify them uniquely. So you may have the bank name. So if you have the bank name, so this is under SBI, ICICI, this is under HDFC. Now together we are able to form uniquely. So that is what actually is. This entity is going to become weak entity, and by adding this bank entity to this one, it is going to become you are able to identify uniquely actually. That is what it relies on the relationship. We are going to have a relationship with the other entity so that you can identify all the records uniquely. So that part you will get the clarity more. Here simply try to understand that you don't have simply a primary key in the entity. Such a entities we are calling as a weak entity. Okay, so that is what overall entity meaning, strong entity and weak entity. Okay,